Hello, Ruth.
Hi,
Hello,
Martin.
Africa.
Hi, everyone.
Yeah, it's
Back.
good to have you guys back. We took a little break from our universe event last month,
Mm-hmm.
so we are really excited to have you guys here for the November meetup. I think this is the last meetup for the year.
Yeah,
So
I don't think we'll be having another one because the holidays.
yeah, we need to go take a break and
Yeah,
like we say here, kill some slice of or slaughter some chicken for the for the new year
yeah,
and
sure.
Christmas. So thank you guys for joining us today. We have a lot of goodies packed for you guys today.
Mm-hmm.
Ruth and I will be hosting.
Definitely a lot of news as well
Oh
because
yeah, there's
from
a lot of from universe, right? There's a lot of new offerings and new functionality on the platform. So
Mhm.
pretty excited here to be chatting with you. So Ruth, do you? Oh yeah, I'm first here. So you guys have
Yeah, I
met me
think
before.
okay. The screen is up.
Yeah, yeah. I'm an account executive here at GitHub. Been here for almost 4 years. Um, I'm also a crypto enthusiast. Invest a little bit in real estate here and there.
Mhm.
Ruth, want to introduce yourself?
Sure. So, hi everybody. Welcome back again. So my name is Ruth Kega. I'm from Nigeria, and I'm a technical content manager at a company called Animals. Also a GitHub star, and I love contributing to open source. You can find me at Kega Ruth at on Twitter. So yeah, I'm excited to host this event along with Martin. And like Martin said, we have like a lot for you today. A lot of news, interesting conversations and interesting talks as well. So yeah, that's about me.
Cool. And this is our agenda for today. We have two speakers. First is Mr. Abdul. He'll be talking about web optimization for whatever project you guys are working on. And then we also have a co-founder of a startup, and her name is Mrs. Tsitsi. She will be talking about I do have some specific questions that I want to ask Titi because I have some
Sure.
startup ideas that I want to work on while I'm in Nigeria. So definitely make sure you stay through till the towards the end for that conversation
Yeah,
with
definitely.
Titi. And I think the last part will have a closing section and a networking time on Zoom. So
Hmm.
please stay till the end. You will also have more time with the speakers to ask them questions that we're going to go through during their presentation or their talk. So definitely stay to the end for the networking session. Uh,
Yeah. And you always forget our Kahoot games. There's also going to be Kahoot game.
oh yeah, I always forget about the
Yeah.
couch.
Yeah. Maybe because you've not played it before. So
Yeah.
yeah, there's also going to be like Kahoot games during that networking session where we play games and you can win something. Yeah.
Hmm.
I think Martin's your screen is okay. I'm back.
Okay, back. All right.
Sure. So please
So
come for the networking session.
yes, and for the GitHub news, we have a few things for you guys today. Um, Ruth, do you want to take
Yeah.
the first one?
Sure, like we said, we have like a lot of things from the universe. If you did not watch the universe, you can still catch up with it. So for the first thing we have, so issues is now better. So GitHub issues has like a new experience, which is in public beta. So with issues now, you can do project planning just the way you have Jira, but here on a small scale where you can break issues like into tasks. You can track relationships. You can also have like conversations, and you can automate everything with code, and everything issues now has like a very good experience where you don't have issues all over the place, but you can as break them into like different tags and tag them very organized in an organized manner. So you should also check that out. It expands to public beta use, so you should check that out.
Yeah, that's definitely a key, one of the major um, announcement from from GitHub Universe. So definitely check that out. And one other enhancement we made to using workflows on the GitHub platform is what some people call input types for manual workflows. So specifically, now you can define um, you know the inputs you want to have in your workflow. You can in addition to like default string types, you can now have things like a choice, boolean, and environment definitions in your manual workflow. So that's something that customers and people on the open source community were asking about. So now you can further define and customize your manual workflows.
Yeah,
And
that's
next,
so GitHub has the command palette. This is like really really very interesting because it's just like
mm,
keyboard shortcuts
shortcut,
where
yeah.
you can. I also tried this out earlier on where you can just search up different things within an organization and you can explore different stuff. So I think I know for Mac, if you're using a Mac, I do not know for Windows, sorry. But if you're using a Mac, just Command K and you can search up like different things, within that organization, issues. You can look up for issues with the hashtag, hash issues, and all other things with like different keywords. So you can explore that on GitHub. It's now available for you. GitHub makes everything easier for you. So yeah, so a command palette is now available for everyone.
Yeah, and I think for Windows it's like Control K, but definitely go check out
Yeah,
GitHub.com and to figure out. I'll check before this end of this presentation. I'll put a link to like all the help documents for Command Palette.
sweet.
And also for GitHub code scanning, GitHub Advanced Security product, which is free for open source. We now have Ruby support. So GitHub is committed to further expand all the languages that we support for security as far as application security is concerned. So stay tuned for more announcements, more languages that would support down the road. So if you're a Ruby developer, good news, now you can scan for vulnerabilities within your code as you work on your open source or private projects.
Yeah, that's
Next,
nice.
yeah, it's pretty cool. Also, looks like this is me too. Also,
Yeah.
another thing we shipped for Universe for our enterprise. If your company uses GitHub Enterprise, you can now have custom repository roles, right? So this was something that people were asking for on the GitHub platform. So you cannot define someone as a security engineer. His job is to like maintain security pipeline and make sure that your code is clean and all of that. And then you can also designate someone as a contractor, a community manager with only read access. So there's a lot you can do as far as like all the roles within your GitHub organization is concerned. And this is something that our enterprise customers can enjoy. And even I think for the rest of the other custom roles like security engineer, contractor, community manager, I think that's available for every other tier of like GitHub plan. So definitely check that out. I'll also go after I hand over to Ruth. I'll go look for the link to this as well and post it and post on YouTube.
Nice. So, good news, another good news. So, Copilot is now available for all these IDs like JetBrains, Vim, PyCharm as well. So, you can now use Copilot on all these other IDs, no longer like VS Code and the other one. So, it's not available for these other IDs. So, please do check it out and explore with GitHub Copilot.
Awesome. Thank you, Ruth. Let's see. This is yours
So,
too, Ruth.
also, um, you know, With GitHub code spaces, there has been some good improvements where you can try out feature composition, the GitHub CLI, and also like um, REST API as well. So I think GitHub Codespace is still in beta, right? And it's not available to everyone. So it's currently available to like team and enterprise cloud plans. So you can check that out if you have access to GitHub Codespace, and also which is going to go live to everyone soon.
Awesome. Thank you. And another universe update. As if we haven't had enough universe updates.
Yeah,
um,
so much.
so there's been some work on GitHub discussion. So GitHub discussion is a place where you can ask questions around a specific GitHub topic, and so we've made some integrations and added some enhancements. So specifically, if you are not aware, GitHub discussions was launched last year. To help developers and teams and open source communities to gather ideas, collaborate, and communicate effectively on GitHub. So we got a lot of feedback, as to like how to improve discussions and make it more powerful and rich with features. And one of the things we heard was to like integrate GitHub Actions support. For instance, you can trigger actions workflow on GitHub discussions, and also like you do webhook events, right? Another thing that people asked for was to like have discussion labels, so you can like probably properly categorize different discussions, and filter based on like specific labels and all of that. So you can have custom labels, you can write your own labels, and just organize things on discussions. And the last thing was to integrate discussions on GitHub Mobile, so that you can continue to like have the discussions on the go. So it's now also on GitHub Mobile. So those are some of the enhancements we made on discussions. Go check it out. It's obviously free for open source, so go check that out. Thank you. And also, GitHub has we started Actions Hackathon. If you are not familiar, GitHub Actions is our CI/CD and automation platform. So this is the second year in us hosting GitHub Actions Hackathon. So from December 8th, GitHub is offering an unmissable opportunity for you to utilize GitHub Actions to benefit open source, and there'll be lots of prizes to go with your projects, and all participants will need to share a dev post detailing how they create their amazing workflow with GitHub Action. So if you don't also know, we have a marketplace where you can check out all the GitHub actions that have been created in the past. So we'll be curious to see what people will create during this hackathon. Remember, it's December 8th, so just next month here, uh, less than a month away. And also, we also had Hacktoberfest last month, which was like it's October,
Yeah,
and we wanted to emphasize GitHub Actions, a perfect open source access point. So if you're trying to figure out like what open source work or project you want to like add to your resume, GitHub Actions is a great way to like go start creating apps and applications on top of the platform, and put yourself out there. um, Let me just list some of the prizes that would be won during the hackathon. So there'll be 5 grand winners, and um, in each category, right? So there will be 1,500 US dollars gift cards or equivalent. So I think that's for like 5 people, and then there'll be $300 USD credit for Dev Shop. There'll be GitHub swags. There'll be Dev sticker packs.
interesting.
There's a lot of prizes here. So you guys need to like go to like GitHub News, or GitHub blog and learn more about like the actions hackathon. Like there's just so many prizes here. Like it's gonna take the whole day for me to like read through all the prizes. And let's see here. So if you want to submit a project for the hackathon, you can follow these steps. I would look for the link to this and have it sent on YouTube. So that's just a little bit more. Also, there we have a think this is a Twitter community that you can join as well, so you can learn more about what's going on as far as GitHub is concerned and the dev community and some of the things we are doing around the Actions Hackathon. So definitely go follow us at GitHub community to join, and you'll get all the news. You won't have to hear it from me. You get it straight from the developers that are working on this actions hackathon. So I think that's pretty much it
Yep.
there.
So that's all the news that we have. But if you would like to be a speaker, if you're listening and you like to be a speaker, or you have someone that would be interested in speaking at, GitHub Africa virtual events, please go use that link and submit your proposals, and then we'll go through it and do well to contact you. So we accept all speakers. Please do fill in your proposals and let us know that you want to speak, and then you also be up here speaking and educating others. So yeah, so please submit your proposals, and I think it's time for us to hear our awesome speakers.
All right. So let me introduce the first speaker. Abdul Abubakar is the first speaker. He's a Nigerian. He'll be talking about web optimization. Uh, you know, it's really important. So definitely stay and listen to all his presentation, and he will be available on Zoom after the meetup, so we can talk more. So Abubakar, over to you.
Okay. Hello everyone. Yeah, it's glad to be here. My name is Abdul Qudus. I am a front-end developer at Satisfaction. Today we'll be looking at web optimization more than an afterthought. So web optimization is actually a very important aspect of so yeah. All right. Moving on, what is web optimization? Put simply, it's the process of using tools, techniques, strategies, basically steps you take to make sure the overall performance of your application is optimized, right? There are several techniques that you can take. But all of those processes put together can be described as web optimization. Um, so why should you really care about web optimization, right? I mean, you're done building your website, you've written your HTML, your CSS, your JavaScript, you've deployed it, and should you really care about optimizing it? It works fine. You've tested it, there are no issues. So why should you care about optimizing your application? The first one is you get an improved user experience, right? So people come to your website and they're able to load your site fast. They don't have to wait 31 minutes, 30 seconds to 1 minute for your application to come up. You can easily view your site, do what they want to do, and leave. Another one is customer retention, which is also very important from the business aspect of things. You want to make sure people coming to your site don't just go and not come back again. Typical example is when you're building a food delivery system and you want people to order food. Someone that's very hungry comes to your website, tries to order something to eat, but then it takes 30 seconds up to a minute for your site to come up, and then someone that's very hungry doesn't have as much patience as you'd expect, so they leave your site and would probably not come back again because the last time they were hungry, they were not able to order something on your site. The other reason why you should care about web optimization is the fact that it gives you this competitive edge over other businesses, which is very important because when you're a business, you're probably competing with other people, other businesses. You are trying to make sure you have that edge, no matter how little. So having a website that loads fast is gives your business an edge, right? So take for example, you have an e-commerce platform, you're competing with people, businesses like Amazon, AliExpress, and you want to make sure people come to your site and are able to use it. So having a fast website gives you that edge and allows people to use your application properly. Um, so optimizing your website is something that should be done during development. There are things you should consider, things you should be conscious about when you're building. And when you don't take these things into consideration and eventually do them after you're done developing, there are some issues that you might face. And one is it's almost always too late to optimize after you're done developing. Um, when you realize, oh, the performance of my site is quite poor and I have to optimize this, at that point it's almost too late. You probably have had users that experienced poor performance on your site and won't want to come back. You've lost some users, you've probably lost a lot of money also. Another thing is it's relatively expensive because at the point where you realize, oh, I have to optimize this, you already done building, you already done developing, probably push to production, and you might want to begin thinking of hiring a performance expert to help you optimize your application. Now, this will involve another hiring process, you spend more money, and it's also almost impossible to modify thousands of lines of code. So you're done developing and you probably have several lines of JavaScript, CSS, HTML, and then you begin to wonder, where do I start from? At that point, it's almost too late to optimize. So we'll be looking at ways you can improve your performance, things you can take into consideration when building your site, as it would help you to have an overall improved performance and things, and you won't have to go back to optimizing after you're done developing. So some of the tips to improve performance during development, we'll be talking about three or four. The first one, and it's one I try to talk a lot about, is using libraries only when they're absolutely necessary. I mean, a lot of times, with the coming together of package managers, you have things like npm, especially npm. It's usually very easy for people to go to npm, look for a certain library that does what they want to do, and all they do is install it. They don't really check much. I mean, it works, so why should I really check whether this library is optimized or not? Well, one thing is these libraries are they increase the overall bundle size of your application. So if your website was about 30, 40 kilobytes before you install this library, maybe after installing all of these libraries, the bundle size gets up to 2 megabytes or 1 megabyte. A typical example, and I've seen a lot in websites, is when you use libraries like Moment or Lodash. People just tend to install the whole thing when probably the feature they need it for is something that they could have done without having to install these libraries. Another thing to consider is these libraries might not exactly be maintained at that point. Maybe the last time it was updated was about 7 months ago. Now the problem with that is there might be some techniques, some ways to optimize your website that was being uh, that came about, before after the time the library was updated, that library might not be using. So if you have things like tree shaking, several optimization techniques, these libraries might not support that. So that means any optimization technique you even want to use would not be supported by this library. So you won't be able to optimize these libraries. Now, moving on, the next one is to compress media files as much as possible. If you see the image to the right, you realize media files and JavaScript takes up a lot of the space on your web application. You have video taking up to 60%, images taking 21%, and JavaScript taking 14%. Now, one thing you want to do is you want to make sure you compress these media files as much as possible, because it's going to take a lot of time for your site to load up all of these videos, all of these images, and that time is going to be added to the overall waiting time. So if you had about 3 4 videos, for example, on your site, the user is going to have to wait for all of these videos to load up before they can use your application. And what if they don't even want to watch this video? What if this video is not even on that particular page they're coming to see, right? You're just trying to load a video that they won't end up seeing. Yeah. Another thing is to use optimized image formats like WebP. So WebP is a new image format that allows you to compress your images, but not losing so much quality. So you could take an image that's up to 500 kilobytes, bring it down to about 50, probably 20 kilobyte, depending, and you won't lose as much quality. It's called lossless compression, right? Another technique you could consider is to lazy load these images. So there are times when you're building applications that relies heavily on some of these images, right? Take for example, you're trying to build a good gallery website. Obviously, you want people to see some of the images you have in your gallery, and could be up to 100 pictures. So you can't just load up all of these images at once, right? You have to look for techniques, ways to optimize where you load all of these images. And one way to do that is to lazy load these images, right? You have 100 images on your site. Obviously, the user won't see all of these 100 images at once. So the way lazy loading works is you only show the user what they see at a certain time. So if probably the screen can only show about 6 pictures at a time, what you're going to do is you show those 6 pictures, and then as user scrolls, you load the next six, load the next six, keep on doing that. So that way the user doesn't load 100 pictures at once. All they need to load is 6 images for them to start viewing your website, and as they keep on scrolling, they can keep viewing more of these images. And one other thing I need to add is, do you really need an image on your site? There are times when these things you're using an image for can be done with something like an icon, or probably even CSS, but then you added an image that's several kilobytes large, and then adds an overhead to your application. Another thing we're also going to consider is how to optimize your JavaScript file. Now, this is also very important because JavaScript files, we almost cannot do without JavaScript on the front end. And usually JavaScript takes quite a lot of space, and we need to find ways to optimize these files. And one way to do that is to remove unused code using tree shaking. So the way tree shaking works is, if you have, for example, a library that, yeah, I'm going to use Lodash again, for example. So you have Lodash. Lodash gives you several functions, right? And maybe what you just wanted to import, well, you imported just 1 or 2 functions from Lodash, and then Lodash has several hundreds of functions, and you're just using two. If you don't use tree shaking with Lodash, that would mean you are adding 98 more of these functions that you're not using to your bundle size. So what tree shaking does is it picks those 2 functions that you use, right, and discards the other 98. So just those two are what's going to be added to your bundle size, and that's how tree shaking works. Um, so you want to make sure you are removing all of this unused code. Now, usually with tools like Webpack, that's almost done automatically with ES5 import and exports. You won't have to manually do the tree shaking yourself. You have tools that does that for you. Another thing to consider is to cache your GS files. Now, you don't want the user to always reach out to the server to get your GS files, except there is like an update to the JavaScript files. What you want to do is, if you have your JavaScript files loaded once, you try to cache them on the browser such that anytime the user wants to access those JavaScript files again, they won't have to reach out to the server. They can just check the cache, get the JavaScript files, and if there are any updates, you can get that while the user is already doing what they want to do on your page. Another technique is code splitting. So you have this huge JavaScript file, but then you realize not everything is being used on your landing page, for example. Maybe you only needed 1 or 2 lines of JavaScript code from that part that is being used on your landing page. So you won't want to load up the entire JavaScript file when users on the landing page. It's like saying, hey, I want you to load something you're not going to use now, but I'll show you you're going to use it later on. right? What are the chances that the user is going to get to that particular page where they are going to use that JavaScript functions? So what you want to do is try to make sure you're delivering only the part that are being used, the essential components, basically. So if they're on the landing page and what you want is a function that toggles the navbar, for example, only load that section and then once it's loaded, basically the user will be able to access that particular page. So what you want to do is load these files asynchronously, right? So you have probably the index.js, for example, the one that is being used on the index page. That's what you load when user comes to your landing page. And then when that's been loaded and user is navigating your website successfully, you could begin loading the login page or the sign up page without having to disrupt the user's interaction with your site, basically. Another technique is to minify all your JavaScript files, right? So minification basically involves you have your JavaScript file, so you're trying to remove all of the spaces, all of the unused code, basically your comments and all of that. So that's been done with tools like Amplify. So that's been done by there are tools that does that. Basically, you don't have to begin removing spaces. Usually, as human beings, we try to use codes that are readable, right? So you have tools that help you to modify the JavaScript files, and they reduce the overall size, right? So you would have to push 500 kilobytes of JavaScript files when you could push about 250. So we're looking for ways to reduce the size. So anything that we can do, we try to do it. There's also this pattern called push and preload. So you're only pushing the required files, and for the ones that are not needed, you try to do them after that. So these are several techniques that you could take to improve your JavaScript files. There are so many, and if we decide to go through all of them now, probably won't leave here today. So moving on, there are tools to help you measure the performance of your site. So how do you know whether your site is fast? How do you know areas you can improve? So some of these tools are Lighthouse, and that's probably my favorite tool because it gives you this interface on your browser dev tools where you can easily check what is not working well on my site, where do I have to improve. And my image is loading fine. Do I have to compress my images? Gives you a very detailed report, and it also doesn't involve you leaving maybe your particular screen. You can just open up your dev tools, inspect, and you see your performance report basically. There are also other ones like page speed insights, web page tests, Chrome UX report. There are several other tools out there that allow you to measure the performance of your site. You can just decide to check anyone out, and yeah, so that's it. We have some of the helpful resources. I think one of the most important one is the web.dev. It's this resource by Google that gives you a lot regarding web performance. You can find several tools also that can help you to improve your performance. You have the Andela.com insights. There are several other ones, but these are some of the ones I could find. So you could take time to check them out and see which works for you. So thank you very much. I think that's the end of my presentation. So if there are any questions, you could just drop them on the comment section and we'll get to that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks so much, Abdul, for that
Yeah.
awesome presentation. Ruth, you want to introduce the next speaker?
Okay, I think there's a question here from Cuba. How do you manage particularly caching of JS files in a CI/CD pipeline?
Okay. Yeah. So there are several ways you could do that. I mean, for me, the way I do caching of JavaScript files, I use things like a service worker. So it's basically done on the front end side of things. So you won't have to do a lot of work on your CI/CD pipeline. You have service workers that basically cache these JavaScript files for you. So anytime you load the JavaScript files, you would basically store them into like a service worker, sort of like a storage basically, and when you need those files again, you don't have to check the server. You just check the service worker and load them up. But from the probably the server side of things, I think there are some tools. I think Nginx provides some tools that you could use to cache some of these JavaScript files right on the server. So um, hope that answers your question.
Awesome.
Great. Thank you so much, Abdul. I don't know if okay. Yeah, so there's a comment. Great talk.
Awesome.
Yep.
Correct.
Thanks, Abdul, for your
Uh,
presentation. And a
yeah,
lot.
thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay, so we have our next speaker coming up. So we are going to be hearing from Tsitsi. Tsitsi is a co-founder at the Guardian Health. We're going to learn about the Guardian Health in a couple of minutes. Is going to tell us about that, and she's also a data scientist at TerraFlow AI. And Tsitsi is going to be talking about co-founding a startup. So in case you're interested, future startups or anything, you would really benefit from this session. So I think Titi is going to be up in a minute,
Yeah,
and
I'm
the session
also.
is going to be quite interactive. We're going to be asking Titi some questions, and she'll throw in all the feedback, and then you can also prep your questions as well to ask. Okay, yeah, I think
Mhm.
Titi's not up yet.
Yeah, also some things about Tsitsi. She studied at the Wits University. Has a bachelor in computation and applied mathematics in big data analytics, which is pretty cool. Last year, she was part of the top 15 young geeks of South Africa, and also part of the Rising Stars of South Africa by Brainstorm magazine. So she's really good. She loves research and the application of technology to solving societal problems. Um, Guardian Health, just a little bit about Guardian Health. It's a telehealth platform co-owned by Tsitsi, and it won about 5 hackathons last year. So this is why it's good for engineers to go to hackathons and put your work out there. You never know how that would help your career or help your ideas and bring it to life. There's a lot of stuff she's been involved in, uh, including the intelligence, IT, web business intelligence hackathon, Capitech Life hackathon, Nemisa data science hackathon. She's been like all over the place, putting her ideas out there, and this has helped her gain experience, meet people that can help her because at these hackathons you're gonna meet other engineers, you connect with them, and potentially they can become your co-founder. So Titi, thanks so much for joining us, and we really appreciate your time. So, just introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about Guardian Health, and how did you get started?
Cool. Thank you guys for having me. So,
Yeah,
as
sure.
already introduced, I'm Tsitsi, and so Guardian Health started. It wasn't like an idea to start a startup. Actually, when it started, it was I was supposed to go back to university to do my master's in computer science,
Mm,
focusing on anomaly detection of maternal health issues. So
mm,
I just wanted to do a bit of experimentation using a hackathon that was coming up to just see what I could find in some data that I had and just see if that the topic actually made sense.
mm,
Did that, developed some really cool algorithms with my partner Tino,
mm,
and after we had presented, actually, it's only then that somebody actually from a government department was quite keen to hear a little bit more because apparently it was a solution that could potentially solve a problem that they were facing. And
mm.
from there onwards, I guess he kind of planted a seed that actually, this could potentially be a solution that can go further than just a hackathon. And we started
Wow.
competing into actually building a feature at every hackathon that we went to until later in the year that we actually won the best youth app at the MTN App Awards, and this year won the best health app at the MTN App Awards. So it's been a journey. but it didn't start
Yeah.
as, okay, we're starting a business. It was actually only at the end of the year that we were like, oh, hey, we need to start kind of planning this to actually be an actual startup.
Nice.
Wow, that's
That's
awesome.
really interesting.
Just a little bit of, because there's a major company in the US. It's called Twilio. They're into communications, and like they started from a hackathon as well, right? So it's great that your company's had its roots from in a hackathon.
Nice. So I understand that like you're fully, self-funded. So I think everybody's here for the survival tips. So what are how are you managing with that, and all that?
So I think one of the survival tips for us was, through the hackathons, not only were we developing new features and kind of also gaining exposure, of course, networking, but most importantly, as we were winning those hackathons, we were actually raising money because, you get
Mm.
that 50,000 Rand, and it means a lot for a
Yeah.
startup. So you make sure that you do what you can, but also, I guess, most importantly, also taking advantage of some free things that some tech companies have. Like if you look at your Amazon, they usually have some deals for startups. When you look at your
Exactly.
GCP, they usually have some deals for startups. So I think that's another tip as well, that try and also
Hmm.
take advantage of any free things that you can possibly get your hands on to start, build something, because the idea
Yeah.
is not to, you're probably not going to scale in the first month or so, honestly. So the idea is just, you just want to be able to have something that you can showcase to other people, and the free things are sufficient enough for that most of the times.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
that's
that's
re-
true.
that's really good advice. Um, there's a lot of free stuff out there that you can take advantage of as a startup. Another thing I was curious about it is, how do you approach work that impacts the well-being of an entire continent? Healthcare in Africa is, I think that we have less doctors per capita, like in Africa, compared to any other place in the world. So like, was that something that drove you to the startup, or to the specific area or industry to tackle?
Yeah. That's a really great question. So, as I mentioned, the motivation behind starting Guardian Health actually started through wanting to do my research in a health related topic. The
Hmm.
particular reason why that was important is actually because in South Africa specifically, there's quite an issue that we actually have where a lot of women prefer to go to um, hospitals instead of clinics, even though they could potentially give birth at a clinic. So, but essentially, you want only high risk women to go to a hospital. But because
Hospital,
as a
yeah.
woman, you don't know if you're high risk, or rather, you would rather be at a hospital because there is obviously the assumption that there are more resources, which is true.
Sure.
But then what usually happens is that it gets hospitals quite overloaded, and there've been like massive things where there are no beds, and genuinely the situations are quite bad. So if we can
Mm.
be able to use data science to detect the risk of a woman, one, obviously we allow that woman to seek help on time, but also we allow the resource planning that should be happening on a facility level to be much more efficient. And that was really the motivation. Then going forwards, I think the motivation to develop solutions in health is because as Africa, we face a lot of issues, and when we adopt some solutions that are not built in Africa, they're not built for the African continent. And what
Mhm.
generally happens is that you find that they don't address the issues that we face directly. So I would
Exactly.
definitely inspire that whichever continent you're in, try to also tackle the problems that your communities face because you understand them better. So you can solve more custom solutions for your communities and your society and all of that.
Yeah, that's
Interesting.
really good.
That's good. So another question we have is like, with guardian health, I'm sure you have experienced, some stuff you've had to like leverage some of your knowledge on it. So what are like the most important entrepreneurial lessons that you can, share with us and the audience that we could benefit from? Feel free to like draw instances where you had like bottlenecks with guardian health and then it's just helped you scale through. So yeah, I'd love to hear that as well.
Cool. So I think so as a technical person, as 100% of a technical person, well, that was last year. I think my business knowledge has developed quite a bit since then. But I think one of the mistakes that we make as tech people, I don't know if it's a mistake, but a lot of times if you're trying to solve a problem in a domain that you are not familiar with, the problem is you're solving it from a technical perspective, but you don't really have knowledge on whether or not it's actually the right solution for your target audience. So I think one of the lessons that we had to learn later on was when we started to engage with our end users, that's when we were like, oh damn, this is not a very good there is definitely a problem we've identified, and everybody can agree that we've identified the problem, but perhaps it's not exactly solving the problem that the end user would want you to solve it. So I think one lesson from that would be you need to start engaging with people that you're solving problems for quite early on in the journey. Don't build for a year and then go talk to people that you're building for. Rather engage quite early on. I think the second thing is actually people are kinder than you think. I think a lot of times there's always been this thing that, you're on your own as an entrepreneur, and like, you've got to like really swim on your own. And I think my experience has actually been quite different. There was a lot of support. A lot of people reached out, particularly when we were kind of gaining a lot of when people were writing about us and all that. I mean, genuinely, health professionals reached out to actually want to be a part of our journey, which is how we got our health consultant as well, Dr. Slepe. And that is just somebody who felt like they wanted to be part of our journey. So one thing, shoot your shot, go on Twitter, go on LinkedIn, ask for help. If they say no, they say no, but you're not going to lose anything, right? But also, I think one other thing is fail quickly, right? Because you don't want to spend too much time
Mhm.
focusing on an idea that might not work. Because at the end of the day, as much as some ideas do work, some do not work out, right? So you want to
Mhm.
build as quickly as you can, get feedback as quickly as you can. And if it's something that's not going to work, you can quickly move on so that you don't work on something that's maybe not going to work out because you didn't seek help or you didn't seek people's opinions early on. So fail quickly. Build and
Yeah.
fail quickly if it's an idea that's not going to work out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really really good. I had one more question. You are also a data scientist at Terraflow. Is that like your day job? Like, how do you combine doing that and also like running a startup? Like, it seems like a lot. How do you balance your stuff?
So I'm actually not really doing data science work anymore. I'm actually a software
Okay.
discipline lead at the moment. So I'm completely doing software engineering now. But yes, I do have a full-time job. In terms
Oh
of
wow.
wait, what was the question?
So how do you balance your time? Even someone has it. How do you balance your full time job and running a startup at the same time? It's something that I'm trying to do. So I want to get your experience.
Yeah. Um it's difficult, and I think last year was even harder because then it was like, okay, you now suddenly have this new thing that requires a lot of your time, and then
Yeah.
it was quite difficult to manage. But I think now it's more of every day I try to put in some time, even if it's an hour, even if it's whatever. But at some point at 5 o'clock I need to put in a few hours. I generally try to separate my day quite nicely. I have really early mornings. I think that's also another thing. I usually start my
Right.
day at around 5, latest 6, and like maybe put in about 3 hours before I actually start my day job, and then
Mhm.
also put in maybe an hour or so after work. It's very difficult, and also weekends are usually for the startup, so it's difficult, but it's doable. But it's definitely not easy at all.
Yeah, I can
Yeah.
definitely understand that.
So I see
Um,
another question here. So Derek says many startups have like lots of manual tasks and processes at the beginning in order to ship fast. So how soon should you start using automation?
um Honestly speaking, I wouldn't advise perfection in the beginning. I don't think any startup has perfection. You build something so that it works, or you can, like, the bare minimum, right? So you can honestly, I think if you take too much time focusing on automation and making something perfect, you're probably running out of time. Somebody could possibly ship it out before you, or you
yeah,
possibly lose momentum. So don't focus on perfection, focus on just make it work. Make it work, make some user to use it, make them understand that you're not like I don't know, you're not some corporate that's got this thing and it's perfect. Make them understand that you've got this thing, this is what it's supposed to do, and then they give you feedback, and then you can do everything else that you do, because the idea is you want to get as much feedback as you can in the beginning. It's not so much about, okay, our back end processes, it's never perfect in the beginning, and don't even focus on that.
Mm.
So
That's
I don't know
okay.
about the how soon part, but I guess once you're sure that this thing is working out, your end users are engaging with it, they think it's useful, and this is something that you're now going with, then maybe later on now you can start making things to be perfect. But honestly, most
Hmm.
people and most end users, if you're honest with them, particularly because remember when you get your pilot users, you have a little community of people that are fully aware of the stage you're in. They are fully aware that they are there to give you feedback and help you to grow. Um, and that's what it's about. That's what it's about. They completely understand that some processes won't be perfect.
Hmm. Yeah. I know you've been fully bootstrapped so far in your startup journey, thanks to all the hackathon and all the money you won there. Like, what's the next stage? At what point do you think of like raising capital from investors? Like, is that something that you're thinking about, and how would you approach that?
It is something that we have definitely thought about, but I think it's actually been quite great to not have too much pressure around it, because we've
Hmm.
really just been trying to grow as much as we can. I think in the
Yeah.
beginning it was more, let's really prove the concept, let's have our users, let's like onboard as many users as we can, and then once
Hmm.
we're really sure that this is working out, then we can consider getting investors. It is something that we're open to, actually. I mean, if there is an investor that is interested, we're very open to the conversations. But in terms of growth, we've also been growing. We had our first 3 interns this year, which was absolutely incredible. So that's
Right.
growth as well for us. So yeah.
That is so so awesome. Ruth, do you have
Yeah,
any
we
other
have
last
another
question?
question. Yeah, we have a question from Phoebe. Says,
Okay.
any strong advice for strong in quotes advice for younger age developers? Yeah.
I would definitely say that it's actually, I don't know if it's easy everywhere else in the world to grow in a development space, but I mean, look, gain as much experience as you can. Go to these events as well, actually, and engage with other people. I think if there is anything else that I might say I've gained from going to hackathons, engaging with other developers, is that you learn and you're able to really gauge where you also stand. What technologies are out there, learn as much as you can at this point in time. Like it's quite important that you do that, engage with other people, put yourself out there, because outside of development there's a lot of other things that you learn. Like for instance, I've learned leadership. I don't know if I was a leader before last year, but those are some things that you learn just by going out there. You develop your speaking skills and all of that stuff, which are other things that are important for you as you grow, right? Because I understand the question is saying for younger aged developers, but as you grow up, you want to have other skills that are really important for you. And particularly, actually, speaking is quite important, because you want to be able, even in a corporate space, you want to be able to engage and communicate whatever ideas that you've got. You want to be able to engage with clients and all of that stuff. But also, most importantly, work on your problem solving skills. I mean, that is really what development is about, right? So yes, the coding skills and the perfecting your programming languages is important, but be a problem solver more than anything, because that's what this is really about.
Nice. Thank you
Awesome.
so much. Okay, I think we have another question. So from Yolanda says, what are some of challenges they are faced while like while building Guardian Health, like challenges you faced?
Cool. I think one of those has been one actually kind of transitioning from just being a tech person to actually being a business person. I think that was like one of the hardest things, because that was like a territory that we were not familiar with at all, right? So to really start kind of structuring things for the startup to actually be an actual business where we're like, okay, we're thinking like people that want to scale. I think that was one of the biggest things. We were actually quite fortunate because we ended up being part of a program that kind of really taught us all of that stuff. But for me, that was one of the biggest challenges. Um, I think marketing is also one of the hardest things, because generally you find that we don't really know the right people in the industry that we're trying to create products for. So to go
Yeah.
out there and approach doctors and approach health professionals has been one of the hardest challenges, actually. And I think it's a challenge that we're still facing, and we just, I guess it gets a little bit better as you learn your market, but it definitely was one of those things that after you have the product, how do you then get people to actually start using it and to stay using the product as well to retain your customers?
Nice. Thank you so much, Tsitsi. I think that's all the questions we have. Thank you for sharing all this good knowledge. I really learned a lot. I'm sure Martins did as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I had a wonderful time during this talk. So thank you so much for all the experience, all the tips, and advice. So definitely be connecting to you on LinkedIn and chatting more with you going forward. So thank you so much, Titsi.
No worries. Thank you guys for inviting me.
Yeah,
All right,
sure.
and please, we would have Titsi on Zoom after the meetup, so like we can network with her and ask more questions. So we're gonna have a networking section on Zoom. That's the link, github.co/Africa, and we'll also have the speakers. You can ask the speakers questions specifically. And Ruth likes the Kahoot game, so we're gonna have
Yes,
Kahoot game as
I love
well.
to play.
All right. And that's it. And lastly, please also let us know. This is the last meetup for the year. So it's going to be January till we'll see you guys again. We're going to be off for December. So definitely let us know how we can improve the meetup for next year. And all of your feedback is valuable to us. It's just 2 minutes. So it's pretty easy. So let's have you guys on Zoom. I think we'll be on Zoom right away. It's about 9 here. So let's go on Zoom and
Yep.
we'll see you guys soon.
Catch you all on
Thank
Zoom.
you so much for the year. I really appreciate you guys.
Yeah, bye everyone.
Bye.